Nearly a year after its initial release, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth has come to PC, and it is well worth the wait. While largely the same as its console counterparts, what changes have been made to Rebirth are mostly to its benefit. The game looks better than ever while still delivering on the gameplay that made it a hit in the first place. Anyone who has held out for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's PC release is in for a major treat. The game builds masterfully on the foundation created in Final Fantasy VII Remake and opens up a huge new world to explore. It also delivers some incredible character work, adding new life to its classic cast. FF7 Rebirth's world is big and beautiful. With exploration playing a major role in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the game needed to create a world worth exploring. Luckily, Square Enix delivered impressively. The world is beautiful to look at, and its regions all have such a distinct style that one can easily distinguish them just by looking at random screenshots. On top of that, the world is surprisingly interconnected. The late game allows players to travel seamlessly between regions they would have sworn were separated by loading screens. For a game with strong environmental messages, it makes sense the team behind FF7 Rebirth would put in the extra effort to make its natural environments beautiful. From the sunny beaches of Costa del Sol to the stormy peaks above Nibelheim, every step through Rebirth reminds players what is at stake if Gaia's lifestream were to be drained. This makes the game's stunning visuals not just an impressive technological achievement but also thematically relevant. That said, FF7 Rebirth does not restrict its visual splendor to the world. The game's character models are equally as impressive as its vistas. Rebirth retains the exaggerated features that were required to make the characters distinct in the original 1997 version while still managing to make the characters feel almost lifelike. This effect is only enhanced by the updated textures of the PC version, where characters are so detailed that even the peach fuzz on Sephiroth's nose is visible at times. A compelling story drives FF7 Rebirth. While exploring FF7 Rebirth's world is part of the appeal, the game's story is the true reason to play through the game's 40 to 60 hours of main content. Although Final Fantasy VII Remake did a good job introducing these characters and developing their relationships, Rebirth is when players truly get to know them. Most party members get at least one scene dedicated to their past, some of which are emotional gut punches that show exactly how they became who they are. There are even some touching tributes to unexpected characters from Remake. The game's strong character work is supported by some excellent vocal performances. While the game's character models look great, it's really the actors who manage to bring the characters to life. Brianna White's kind and bubbly take on Aerith and John Eric Bentley's passionate approach to Barret are major standouts, but really there are no bad performances. Cody Christian does a great job showing subtle hints of Cloud's inner feelings, despite the Merc's reserved nature, and Britt Baron strikes the perfect balance between Tifa's timid nature and her strong determination. Though some of Rebirth's comedy scenes may, in isolation, seem over the top, they act as the perfect palate cleansers before the game's most devastating moments. The characters may be the strongest aspect of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's story, but the main plot also feels strikingly poignant. The original game's environmental themes were no less important in 1997, but as the impact of climate change becomes ever more apparent, the game's message about preserving the planet hits that much harder. That said, it's important to note that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's narrative elements are not all doom and gloom. Shakespeare understood that no story could be non-stop drama. That's why there's a scene of a drunk porter in the middle of Macbeth. This is something Final Fantasy VII Rebirth understands too, and it's why the game's goofiest elements actually serve a vital role. It's important to occasionally alleviate some tension from a story, so the audience isn't too emotionally exhausted when major emotional moments happen. Though some of Rebirth's comedy scenes may, in isolation, seem over the top, they act as the perfect palate cleansers before the game's most devastating moments. FF7 Rebirth's combat is engaging and accessible. A game as long as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth needs exciting gameplay as much as it does an engaging story if it wants to hold players' attention throughout its full runtime. Luckily, Rebirth is the full package, delivering satisfying combat to complement its strong narrative elements. Even better, the game's multiple combat modes and difficulty settings make it easy to enjoy the game on one's terms. Rebirth has two combat settings, Active and Classic. As the name implies, Classic is a lot closer to combat in older Final Fantasy games, where players are waiting for their AP gauge to fill up and choose combat abilities to perform. While waiting, party members will act automatically, switching between attacking and blocking enemies. Inputs like basic attacks and switching Cloud between combat modes can still be used manually in Classic mode, but movement is mostly automated. This mode is great for players who want to experience FF7 Rebirth's story and exploration but aren't keen on fast-paced combat. Active mode gives players full control of Cloud and his companions, allowing them to move freely, dodge attacks, and aim weapon abilities like focused thrust or firebolt blade more precisely to hit multiple enemies. Mastering active combat mode can be very rewarding. Fights also feel as though they move more quickly with active mode turned on, which is worth considering for anyone who feels the game is dragging in classic mode. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth's difficulty settings can also help make the game's combat more accessible. Easy mode allows for a less challenging venue to try out active combat or a way to experience the story without getting stuck by difficult fights. Dynamic mode is perfect for players who want to challenge the whole way through and feel they're getting too easily overleveled on normal difficulty due to the game's many side quests. After completing the main story also unlocks a more challenging hard mode. FF7 Rebirth's bloat both is and isn't real. Anyone who has waited for the PC release of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth may have seen some console players discussing the game feeling too bloated. This is a major concern for any open-world RPG, but in truth, Rebirth's potentially bloated elements aren't an issue if players don't want them to be. While trying to achieve 100% completion will likely have players reaching for the skip button every time Chadley starts talking, there is also no need to do every side mission in the game. FF7 Rebirth does a great job of telegraphing which side missions will have narrative elements attached to them, and which are busy work. Any mission marked with a green shield involves voice acting, character moments between Cloud and one of his companions, and are generally more interesting. Skipping other side content won't put players behind on levels, nor will it deny them any strong story beats. It's nice that they're there for players who want more out of the game, and equally nice that they're skippable for those who want a more streamlined experience. Rebirth also has a wealth of minigames, from the Queen's Blood card game to a frog-jumping minigame that feels straight out of Fall Guys. Some, like the Fort Condor strategy game or the fully playable pianos, have surprising depth. Again, these are largely optional, so they don't force a break in the action but can provide fun distractions during long play sessions. Final thoughts on Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth should put to rest any lingering skepticism about the decision to split the original game into 3 parts. The original is a classic, but it's honestly hard to go back to after seeing the added depth that Rebirth has given to its story and characters. This game is a crowning achievement, not just for video game remakes, but for gaming in general. Any minor flaws that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth may have are so overshadowed by its mountain of accomplishments that they might as well not exist. To give the game anything but the highest possible score would be to hold it to nitpicky standards only made possible by its impressive size and wealth of content. Rebirth goes out of its way to ensure all players can enjoy it, and it largely succeeds. 5/5 masterpiece, according to Game Ray's scoring metric.